Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Terry Fletcher.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Steel City Underground WTF podcast. This is week 2 in the NFL, and boy, what a week it was. So I'm just going to open right away with Monday Night Football, since that's the last thing that we watch. And I don't know about you, but many of us had Josh Allen, Adam Thielen, and Stephon Diggs as our fantasy people, right? Well, Josh Allen did his job. Stephon Diggs did his job. Thank you for my 51 points. But what is going on with Adam Thielen and Kirk Cousins? He wants to throw to Jefferson all the time. I get that. Okay, but you know what? You've got a pretty good wide receiver sitting there on your right side that you just look at, and he's just standing around, saying, hey, how's everybody doing? It was such a WTF last night, and in the last, 2 minutes, I was going to lose my fantasy, and I'm in 5 leagues, so this is one of my leagues. And basically, they did garbage points because every time I was up maybe 1 point, Kirk Cousins would throw an interception in the end zone or right by the end zone. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Didn't target Thielen all night. And then finally, we got some garbage points at the end, and I won by, I think, 1.7 points. But fantasy football gods were not with everybody this weekend, that's for sure. But let's go back and start with the games. Okay, so the what the football around the league things, let's start with the Browns. Why not? There's a reason that Cleveland is known as what they call the factory of sadness. If you ever ask Siri, where's the saddest place on earth? They say Cleveland. The Browns have more improbable losses, in my opinion, than any other team in NFL history. And they did it again on Sunday. They had a 30-17 lead, and they were playing the New York Jets. And they blew it in just 85 seconds. I kid you not. Talk about a complete WTF meltdown, and they can't even blame their former quarterback on this. So with a minute 55 left, which is when we switched to it because the Steelers' loss was over, I'll get to that later, Nick Chubb scored a touchdown to put the Browns up 30-17. But these players do not look at the situation at hand. It looked like Cleveland was going to coast to victory, right? But when you're talking about the Browns, again, WTF moments happen all the time. The Jets scored two touchdowns just 60 seconds apart, and they came back to win 31-30. So here's how it happened. So basically, the Browns played pretty good from what I saw in the clips for the first 3 quarters, but they had 6 mistakes that killed them. So the biggest one was Chubb, who could have sealed the win if you just simply fall to the ground instead of scoring that touchdown. Remember, you've got under 2 minutes left. The game would have been over because that run would have given Cleveland the first down. And the Jets, had 0 timeouts. We've seen running backs go down at the 1-yard line before, but Chubb didn't do that. Even if he had got out of bounds, the Browns could still have simply kneeled the ball 3 straight times and picked up the win. But I see too often these guys looking for points instead of looking for wins, and that is just a terrible thing to do. That wasn't the only mistake, though. So the Browns would have had 31 points at the end of the game, but they missed an extra point following Chubb's touchdown. You're like, well, let's just keep going here. And then even after Joe Flacco hits a score with Davis with 1 minute and 22 seconds left to cut Cleveland's lead, the Browns still could have clinched the win by recovering the Jets' onside kick. But instead, the onside kick, the ball bounced off the hands of Amari Cooper into the hands of Justin Hardy. And it just got worse after that. And even after falling behind, the Browns still had another chance to win with 6 seconds left. The Browns were at their own 46-yard line, and they needed roughly 8 to 10 yards to really look at maybe getting a field goal from their kicker, York. But he never got a chance because what did Jacoby Brissett do? Threw an interception. So, yes, that was definitely an interesting game and a WTF all over it. But let's also take a look at some of the other things that happened this weekend. And sometimes you watch these games and you think, no way. And just to add, more like fuel to the fire on that Jets game. What is with the elf in the middle of the field? To me, that was a WTF. I'm like, I thought you guys were the dog pound in Cleveland. But also, did you know that Flacco is 0-6 as a Jets starter? So they had a 59-yard field goal, a fake punt that worked, won the onside kick. I just can't even continue. That was just the craziest game ever. But let's look at some of the other games that actually affect the Steelers. How about the Ravens versus Miami in Baltimore? Well, first of all, you're thinking, great, they're going to kick their butt because they started off with a 103-yard touchdown by wide receiver Devin Duvernay on a return kickoff. Jackson scored 4 touchdowns, but they had no defense. Tua, actually, so the quarterback from Miami, had 6 touchdowns, 62.5 fantasy points, and they beat the Ravens in the last seconds of the game, 42-38. I can't say that I'm doing a happy dance, but I'm doing a happy dance. What the football, okay? I almost said the other thing. Oh my goodness. What the football, Ravens. But it's funny because they're working with a quarterback that does not have a contract. So even though he may have had a good showing, if you don't have wins, you don't have a contract. So first, a shout out to 49ers Trey Lance, the rookie quarterback. He broke his ankle after, I think, a couple of drives and entered Jimmy Garoppolo, who's very happy to be back as the starter. But we definitely want to send our prayers out to him. And they won their game, so let's really take a look and see what's going to happen up in the Bay Area. It was raining. It was a tough game. And, Jimmy Garoppolo, what is the best thing about him? He's cute. Now, the guys that are listening to this are saying, really, Terry? And the women are listening saying, yes, Terry, you're correct. So I know that's a what the football moment for many guys out there, but I'm telling you, we like looking at him. So let's hope he can throw the ball because NFC wouldn't mind seeing that later on in the year. But let's look at the Atlanta Rams game. So the Rams were ahead in this game. They were ahead 17 points. And remember, Atlanta now has Mariota, and they came back. They were 1 score down. They were 4th and inches. And actually, Mariota fell down because of the conditions, got back up, and actually had a first down pass. They were so close to coming back and winning that game, and I love that kid. But they didn't get the win, but the funny thing about that game was who was the announcer? Well, it was Mark Sanchez. And he said a couple of things that people are kind of freaking out about. I thought it was funny. So one of the things he said when one of the linebackers, Shelton, was clearing out an area for their running back, he goes, Shelton's clearing out defenders faster than a teenager clears out his search history on his web browser. Holy smokes. And I'm quoting. To me, that was funny, but everybody's like, that's not funny. I'm like, no, it is. And then when Cooper Kupp catches a basket catch, this is another Tony Romo, or I'm sorry, I thought it was Tony Romo. Mark Sanchez quote, "It's one thing to drop it in the bucket. It's another thing to drop it in a shot glass or a red Solo cup. He's so good at that." And all I kept thinking about is he's trying to be funny and Tony Romo, but he's funny. Hopefully people aren't going to get so sensitive because we're talking football. They've already taken the trash talking out of the game. You barely look at somebody and you get a penalty for unsportsmanlike conduct. Let's not let the announcers not have fun with the game. Come on, people. What the football? So staying in the NFC, it shouldn't be a surprise that Tom Brady is showing up in a What the Football podcast. So it was Tampa Bay at New Orleans, and he has trouble historically beating New Orleans, especially in New Orleans. But they did win 20-10, but there was not without some drama. So Brady and cornerback Marshawn Lattimore, they exchange words. Brady's actually, from what you can tell, and you can always read his lips, they are early in the fourth quarter. It's 3-3. Brady throws an incomplete pass with Lattimore in coverage, and it's 3rd and 5. And then they're smack talking each other. Lattimore had something, made a gesture, and Brady got in his face back. Well, then to protect their quarterback, Leonard Fournette shoved Lattimore, and then just complete chaos. Talk about what the football. Then Mike Evans comes across the sideline and shoves Lattimore to the turf. Then punches are thrown. Evans and Lattimore are ejected. And then later on, Mike Evans said that he saw Lattimore punch Lenny, which obviously is Fournette, in the face, push Tom, and he goes, "I just pushed back." Well, guess what? He got a 1-game suspension. Nobody else did. I think somebody needs to talk to Tom about his smack talking because nobody else is allowed to do it. You need to just play the football game. He's having some definite anger issues this season. So let's go to the middle of the country, and how about Texans at Denver? So there was so much hype about Russell Wilson going to Denver. They even paid him a ridiculous salary, extended his contract over the $200 million mark. And it's just like, you didn't even play a game with them yet. And he played terrible. By the third quarter, he had only completed 8 passes. The new head coach, Nathaniel Hackett, he is so strange. He reminds me of the Chargers coach in some of the decisions. So it's 3rd and inches. They pitch it backward, and they get stuffed. And then, now they're trying for a 43 to 44 yard field goal, and now it's long at 53 plus. Then it's 4th and inches, and what happens? They take a delay of game. Now, what the football coach? What WTF? Now they have to punt. Who's not looking at the clock? So first of all, Russell should be looking at it, but secondly, so should the coach. This is not the first rodeo for Russell Wilson, so I'm not really sure what's going on. But in Denver, they're booing him. And then the fans were actually counting down the play clock, 5, 4, 3, etc., and they still had a delay of game twice in that game. They won 16-9, but it was ugly. And I'm sorry, they lost to Seattle week 1. They have 13 penalties week 1, 12 penalties last week. This is just going to be an ugly season for them. And I expect them to finish last in their division. So that's going to be a very expensive mistake. And I was reading something about Nathaniel Hackett that came from Tampa Bay and how he used to make it so fun for Tom Brady. And, he was just such a character. I get the fun and I see how you and Russell are acting, but it's time to man up and do your job. This is just absolutely ridiculous. So let's go to Cincy. Well, they lost to Dallas with a backup quarterback, remember, Cooper Rush. But Joe Burrow, you guys got to keep him healthy. He was sacked. He's been sacked 13 times in 2 games. Their 0-2 start. Everybody is saying in the AFC North, I'm sure, not the Steeler fans, were like, well, there you go. But we're like, what the football with that? He's doing his job, but nobody else is protecting him. They just cannot get off the ground. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with the mess in Cleveland, the mess in Cincinnati, the way they can't win games at home in Baltimore. And then, of course, we have to go to the Steelers game. Well, if I have to. Oh my gosh, you guys. So as you know, because I mentioned it last week, I am not convinced that Trubisky is the answer. I'd be really surprised if he's here next year. I'm already doing the chance to get in Kenny Pickett. Kenny, I hear the fans doing it. With Mason Rudolph, he didn't, for me, seem to have peripheral vision when there were players coming at him. With Trubisky, it seems like he doesn't have vision down the field. And so he throws into too many crowds that, let's face it, you are not Big Ben. You don't know that little, thread the needle throw that you can do. And it's causing problems and, players aren't being able to catch the ball. And I see some drops, but I guess they're basically not catchable balls. And then interception. And it's really unfortunate because they talk about the first round draft pick and how they should learn behind a quarterback. I actually don't want Kenny Pickett learning behind Trubisky. That doesn't seem like it's going to be a good learning experience. But here are the Steelers' possessions through 2022, and you tell me if this is not WTF. Punt, punt, field goal, touchdown, punt, 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 field goal, punt, 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 missed field goal, punt, interception, field goal, punt, field goal, touchdown, punt, punt. Yeah, that's it. How many touchdowns did you count there? 2. That's it in 2 games. We can't get anywhere with that. So we definitely need to, and I say we, I'm Steeler family, so Steeler Nation. I just hope that Coach Tomlin realizes that he needs to make a change and make it quick. Now, this Thursday is when the Steelers play again, and so I'm positive he's not going to make a change this week. That's just not in him to do it on a short week. All I can say is, Matt Canada, Mitch Trubisky, do not embarrass us on Thursday Night Football. That's all I can say, because that would be a huge WTF. But it's just crazy to me how we can't capitalize on mistakes by the other team. They had a muffed punt, we had a dropped interception, and we just can't capitalize. And we can't put everything on the defense. That's not fair. We have a very underperforming offense, and it seems like they're just not letting Naj get through. And so I realize we're rebuilding, which is something that I just heard Coach Tomlin say, but it's going to be a painful season if we can't get this offense together. So we obviously lost. We did only lose by 3 points, but that doesn't matter. A loss is a loss. If you lose by 100 points or lose by 3, it's a loss on the season. So let's hope that they pick it up for this coming week. And then the Arizona game versus the Raiders. Now, we absolutely can't stand the Raiders, especially if you're a Steeler fan. They moved to Las Vegas, think they own the world, and guess what? The last minute, there was a touchdown, and Arizona won. So now it took out a security guard, but everybody ran to the security guard. From what I hear, he's okay. It was sad because he was facing the wrong way, so he didn't even know they were coming at him. But, oh my gosh, talk about some upsets this weekend. There were many WTF moments. There were many teams that could not believe that they actually lost. We couldn't believe it. But all I can say is here we go, Thursday night football. So everyone, make it a great rest of your week, and thank you for listening to the WTF Steel City Underground podcast.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.